Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
Okay, so get this. We're diving into this whole drone thing over New Jersey. You've probably seen the headlines, right? But this is not just like some kid messing around with a drone. We're talking about serious drones, like large ones, flying in groups, at night, sometimes hundreds of them. And no one seems to know, like, who's flying them. So we've got news reports from ABC News, statements from government officials, even a letter from some New Jersey mayors who are pretty freaked out. And today we're going to try to figure out, like, what we actually know. What people are saying about it, and what it all means.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What really gets me is the level of concern from officials, even though nobody's really saying these drones are like a specific threat, but we're seeing reactions from nothing to see here all the way up to people saying we need the military to step in. That tells me that this is not just someone messing around.
Right. And it's not just like random places either.
Mm.
These drones have been seen near some pretty sensitive spots, like Picatinny Arsenal, which is a military base. They've even been spotted near Trump National Golf Club, Bedminster. So if it's not just someone goofing off, then who is it?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, they actually had a meeting with state and local officials. But a lot of the people who went to that meeting were not really satisfied with what they heard. Like Mayor Gasali of Montvale, he said, and I quote, "The message conveyed was that there is no credible threat, yet they are flying over critical infrastructure, and their point of origin and destination remain unidentified."
Yeah, I read that too. So it sounds like DHS is saying there's nothing to worry about. But local officials are like, wait a minute, we're seeing these things flying around power plants and stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just him either. State Senator Shapisi, she called the DHS response abysmal and completely unacceptable. So there's a real disconnect here between what the federal government is saying and what the people who actually live in New Jersey are seeing.
So is anyone investigating this? Like, what's the FBI doing?
Yeah, they're involved. The FBI is officially leading the investigation. And they've asked for help from the public. If anyone sees anything to report it, they're saying they're following up on leads and everything. But so far, no real answers. And then you've got the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. They've actually stepped in and imposed flight restrictions over some areas.
Hold on. What do those flight restrictions even do? Like, how do they actually affect drones?
So basically, the FAA can say, okay, you can't fly drones in this area. It's a way to control the airspace and try to prevent accidents or, stop people from doing things they shouldn't be doing with drones. So in this case, they're obviously concerned enough to put these restrictions in place. But Representative Jeff Van Drew, he's a Republican congressman from New Jersey, he was really critical of the FAA during a hearing. He basically said that they haven't done nearly enough to find these drones or to figure out who's controlling them.
Oh, yeah, Van Drew. He's the one who said that Iran was behind it, right?
That's right. He really made a splash with that claim that there's some kind of Iranian mothership off the coast launching all these drones. You can imagine how the media reacted to that.
Oh, yeah. But I thought the Pentagon, shut that down right away.
Yeah, they did. They came out and immediately denied it. The Pentagon's deputy press secretary, Sabrina Singh, she just said straight up, there is not any truth to that. And there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States. And they also said that they haven't found any evidence that connects the drones to any foreign government.
So you're saying that we should maybe take what Van Drew is saying with a grain of salt, at least until we have some actual proof. But what if the Pentagon is downplaying the threat on purpose? Maybe they don't want to cause a panic.
That's always a possibility. Governments sometimes like to keep things quiet, especially when it comes to national security. Maybe they don't want to escalate things or reveal classified information. But here's the thing. Even after the Pentagon denied it, Van Drew still insists that it could be a foreign country. He says he's got information from what he calls well-placed sources.
So we've got these two different stories, and no one has any real proof. It's like a spy movie or something. We've got these mysterious drones, people whispering about foreign governments, and the government is saying there's nothing to worry about, while local officials are freaking out.
It's definitely a puzzle.
That's for sure.
Yeah, a real mystery.
So one thing that we do know is that these drones aren't just randomly flying around. A lot of the reports talk about them flying in formations, almost like they're being controlled by one person or something. It's kind of creepy when you think about it. I mean, what does that tell us?
It definitely suggests that this is pretty sophisticated. This isn't just someone with like a toy drone. You know, Assemblywoman Holly Shapizi, she was at the DHS meeting too, and she specifically said that they haven't been identified as either hobbyist drones or government drones.
Mhm.
And to make things even weirder, no one seems to know where they're coming from or going to. They kind of just appear and disappear.
Okay, so definitely not some teenager. But if we want to figure out who's behind this, we probably need to understand the technology, right? Like, what kind of drone can even do all this?
Yeah, you're right. There are all sorts of drones out there. Some are small, you know, just for fun, but others are like really big and advanced. They can carry a lot of weight and fly for a long time. Some can even fly themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So it's possible that these drones are being controlled from, like, really far away.
exactly.
That's kind of scary.
And if you look at the bigger picture, more and more people are using drones all over the world for good things like delivering packages and,
Yeah.
keeping an eye on things, but also for bad things like smuggling and even attacks.
So this whole New Jersey thing could be like a sign of what's to come,
Maybe.
like a preview of the kind of problems we might have to deal with more and more in the future.
It's possible.
So what can we even DO about?
Well, one thing is to invest in what's called counter-drone technology.
What's that?
So it's basically things like systems that can track drones
Okay.
and even technology that can like jam their signals.
Jamming technology.
Yeah, so you can disrupt the signal and
Right.
force the drone to land.
That sounds like something out of a movie.
It's real. Airports, stadiums, and other places are already using it.
So going back to Van Drew for a second, he seems pretty sure that it's in on, even though the Pentagon said it's not. Is there any chance he could be right?
Well, remember he's saying he's got these sources, but we don't know who they are. So it's hard to say how reliable that information is. And sometimes people have their own reasons for saying things. Maybe those sources have an agenda.
I get that we need to be careful about what we believe. But isn't it kind of dismissive to just say, Van Drew has an agenda, he's a congressman, he represents New Jersey. Shouldn't we at least listen to what he's saying? I mean, he probably has access to information that we don't.
Of course, we should take his concerns seriously, but we also need to think critically. We have
Yeah.
to look at the evidence,
Yeah.
consider who's saying what,
Uh,
and be aware of any biases.
okay, that makes sense. But what about the Pentagon? Could they have a reason to downplay this? Like maybe they messed up and didn't see this coming.
That's another possibility. Sometimes governments try to control the story, especially when it comes to national security. They might not want to cause panic
Right.
or make things worse with another country.
So how are we supposed to know what to believe?
It's tough. There's so much information out there, especially on social media.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
That's why critical thinking is so important.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful about what you read and hear.
And not just believe everything you see.
Exactly.
So in this case,
Yeah.
until we have more evidence, we just don't know for sure about Van Drew's claims.
Right.
We're stuck with this mystery.
And that brings us to another important part of this story,
What's that?
transparency.
Oh, yeah. Senator Cory Booker. He's a
Mhm.
Democrat from New Jersey. He said that we need more transparency from the government, from agencies like the DHS, the FBI, and the Department of Transportation.
Exactly. He said that because we don't have clear information,
Right.
it's creating fear and all these rumors.
And Representative Josh Gottheimer, he's another New Jersey Democrat, he agreed.
Yeah.
He said, I think people have a right to know what's going on.
He also said that he's not personally worried about a threat right now, based on what he's been told.
Okay, but I think people do have a right to be freaked out. I mean, these are unidentified objects flying over our neighborhoods. And the DHS even said that this kind of thing has been happening all over the country and in other countries. So maybe this is just the beginning.
I mean, yeah, you would be right. It's one thing to like read about drones, but when they're actually over your house, that's a whole other story.
It makes you realize, like, all those things we depend on, power grids, water treatment, plants, the internet, they're all kind of vulnerable.
Exactly.
And I bet that's why local officials are so upset.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones who have to keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the information they need.
And speaking of reactions, there's been a lot of talk about what to do about these drones.
Yeah, what can we actually do?
Well, Representative Van Drew, he actually suggested that we should be able to just shoot them down.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, any drone that breaks the flight restrictions.
Huh.
That's pretty extreme, though, right?
Yeah, how do you even know if a drone is a real threat? What if it's just someone who doesn't know about the restrictions?
Exactly.
And what happens if you shoot down the wrong drone,
Right.
like over a neighborhood or something?
It's a big decision.
Yeah, you don't want to make things Worth.
And Representative Chris Smith, he's another Republican from New Jersey. He actually wants to get the military involved.
Oh, wow.
He's asking the defense secretary to send resources from Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakers.
To deal with the drones.
Yeah, to help figure out what they are and how to stop them.
So it sounds like he's taking this really seriously.
He is.
But even with all this talk about military action and shooting down drones, it seems like the main thing people want is just information.
Yeah, transparency is super important in a situation like this.
Right.
It helps people trust the government.
Right.
And it stops all those crazy rumors.
And it's not just about knowing the facts, it's about knowing who to trust.
Right, because you've got all these different people saying different things.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know who's telling the truth.
So what should our listeners do? I mean, besides, trying to figure out who to believe,
Yeah.
should they be worried? Should they call their representatives?
Well, the most important thing is to stay informed. Keep up with the news, read different sources, and be careful about anything that sounds like too crazy to be true.
Right.
And yeah, if you're concerned, definitely contact your representatives.
Let them know you care about this.
Exactly.
And that you want them to get answers.
From the government.
It feels like we're in a whole new world with this drone technology. I mean, it's amazing what they can do.
Yeah.
But it also seems kind of dangerous.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Drones can be used for good things, but they can also be used for bad things.
And we need to figure out how to control them
Exactly.
before it's too late.
So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember about this whole drone mystery?
Good question.
I think it's this. Stay informed, be critical of what you read and hear, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And demand answers from the people in charge.
That's good advice.
This is a story that's not over yet.
Right.
And it's up to all of us to make sure that technology is used for good. And that we have a say in how it shapes our future.
Well said. And to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. As drone technology gets more and more powerful, what role do you want to play? How do we balance the good with the bad? It's something to think about. Because the decisions we make today will affect everyone tomorrow.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.